Wilsey.
Hey, I'm Shay McGalley.
And I'm David Keener.
And this is the Hourlings podcast project. Tonight, Dave's driving a bus. Dave, take it away.
All right, tonight we're talking about AI and writing. I'm sure everybody has heard of ChatGPT. It's been in the news a lot lately. There's also other AI programs out there that are starting to make a splash. So how is that going to affect writing? And what's that to do? We are going to use AI to assist ourselves in writing. So starting off with, can we use AI for like rote boilerplate tasks, boilerplate writing tasks? Marty?
Well, I think that's kind of already started. There's a worry in colleges that essays that are written by AIs won't be susceptible to plagiarism detectors, stuff like that. So this technology is moving so fast. What we think of it today and tomorrow or 6 months from now is going to be completely different a year from now. So boilerplates first, then it's going to be everything. I think there's lots of stages to this whole thing as far as writers go.
Right, and I'm going to cover those stages, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Shay?
Yeah, I mean, I have two comments on that. The first comment is that, yeah, I can tell you the academic world is reeling about it because my professors have already talked about, adding ChatGPT into the syllabus, adding it, into the plagiarism section. I've heard that my university actually already hired a lawyer to work on, what their policy should be on ChatGPT. Just a lot of craziness going around with the academic world. But that said, I don't think that the artistic world is going to be highly affected by this. And the reason I say that is because, number one, the stuff that robots can produce, the writing that robots can produce, I don't think it's going to be a situation where, how people are freaking out over cashiers being replaced with a screen, like a checkout screen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that happening in the artistic world. Robots can produce writing that is very standardized, that is very, you can use it on, resumes, descriptions and stuff, but the actual storytelling, the actual voice, the actual talent, I think people are going to be looking at artists and saying, I don't care as much what the story is. I care what David Keener's voice has to say on that story. I care what Marty Wilsey has to say, or the way that he would show that story. That's why we love our authors. When I think about my favorite author, C.S. Lewis, it's not so much about the content of what he created. It's about, I think all the time, what would he say now about this? What would C.S. Lewis write now about this? What would J.R.R. Tolkien write now if he were living in today's era? So for me, it's really more about the person and less about the content when it comes to AI versus author. So that's why I think the artistic world is safe, but I could be proven wrong. So let's see. I hope I'm not proven wrong.
And I'm gonna say I think you're probably wrong because we're just looking at generation one now.
Oh man, okay.
I think the first wave is going to say, okay, I just finished this manuscript. AI tool, make this sound like with the same, punctuation, grammar, and spelling as Ernest Hemingway.
Oh man.
And it'll be a style chain, a style creator. The same thing that it's doing right now with artwork. You can, present any kind of photo and say, hey, make this look like Starry Night, or like Edward Hopper, painted this. And those do a pretty good job at emulating something else. But that's the thing. The initial creative aspect, which is the hardest thing about writing, is the last frontier as far as AI goes. But the thing is, I could foresee an AI engine that is fed 5,000 Harlequin romances, and you just tell it, a few key components. I want this set in Columbus, Ohio, and I want this and that, go. And it would probably generate a first draft of something that was reasonably close to a formulaic Harlequin romance that maybe an author would then go through and do a little tweakage and put their name on it and go. I could see that happening in a reasonable near future.
But what about, you're saying, like, I agree that the formula can be produced, but what do you think about, like, my point about the voice of the actual author, like your specific voice, Marty? You know what I mean?
That's what AIs can emulate.
That's scary.
See, if somebody comes along and says, I want to write a book like Martin Wilsey,
Yeah.
here's 30 examples of books that he's written.
Really?
Okay, let's generate something new in the same voice. And they will emulate it. Now the thing is, you got to tell it how you want your story to be.
That's scary then, and there is some jeopardy for the artistic world then.
Yeah.
If it's
I think you might be right though when it comes to like the Neil Gaimans and the Stephen Kings of the world. People are buying their voice, right?
Right.
And they feel a connection to a top writer like that. If you're not in the stratosphere with those guys, I don't think most readers know you as a person, and all they're looking at is what they have in front of them, and they can't tell from dots on the screen whether that was generated by a person or an AI, unless it's perhaps badly written or clumsily written by the AI. But
well, in that case, I can see the AI versus author situation becoming something kind of like, a lab-grown diamond versus a mine diamond. They both look the same. You can't tell by looking at them. In fact, sometimes the lab diamonds look better, but they're chemically the same, right? They're the same. They're both diamonds, but that one is mined rather than lab-grown. And so maybe instead of it being a situation like I originally posed, where the author voice is what's going to save the artistic world from AI, maybe it's just the emotional part. Like, people will emotionally stick with the human written stories and the human written content.
Certified written by a real person.
Right. I mean, the purists, you could say, the people who would buy the mine diamond rather than the lab grown diamond. We have to hope that there's enough of them that would care to keep the market alive for real life authors.
Yeah, the problem is, I think a lot of people. Well, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I think a lot of people in the search for a buck, will submit AI written works.
Yeah.
Especially when it's so easy with Kindle Direct Publishing.
Yeah.
If I can just provide an outline to an AI program, and bam, it generates a novel with perfect spelling, punctuation, and grammar, and I just go ahead and upload that thing, and all of one day's work, and start flooding the market with that stuff. That's going to be problematic, because it'll completely dilute the market and make it much harder for people to discern.
Yep. Load it up with my AI generated cover and my AI generated text, and do that a couple times a day. Get myself a couple hundred works out there. And okay, I wouldn't do this myself, but I can see somebody doing that.
Right. And the real worry is the computers are only going to get smarter. The AI is only going to get smarter. And if they start writing really good best-selling books, then that could be much more problematic for us fragile mortals that are trying to write, and it takes us 6 months to put something out instead of 6 minutes.
Yeah, I will say though, I'm with Shay on some aspects. I think an AI potentially, perhaps not generation 1 right now, but could put together a rather formulaic story. But I'm not sure that they could do something like Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game, or something that really has nuance and
be original.
And have that cachet of being really original.
So maybe
on an idea.
Maybe these bots will force authors into a new generation of storytelling, where we get very unorthodox. We start to really experiment with storytelling and move away from formulas in order to distinguish ourselves from these robots.
Yeah, I think it could go lots of different ways.
Who can then imitate
Mostly because copyright's got to catch up with it. It's who really has created the work? Is it just the person at the keyboard that initiated the whole thing? I mean, if I can write a 20-page outline and pass it to a bot, it gives me back a first draft that I then go through with a fine-tooth comb and tune it so that it is my voice. Is that legit for me to do and get all the royalties for? And how does the AI makers make money? Are they going to start pulling the rug out from people and, as Dave said, create a paywall for it? Oh, now that you got a nice taste of this AI tool, it's only going to cost you $160 a month to be able to keep using it.
Yeah, they've spent an awful lot of money on AI. At some point, they have to figure out how to get their return on investment. So things like ChatGPT can't stay free forever. Think of this as the beta phase right now.
Right. And is there going to turn out to be another, a royalty share agreement associated with the AI maker? How's that going to work?
So here's some other things. Would you use an AI to create blurbs? That's kind of formulaic.
I try one because I suck at doing blurbs. If I could have an AI read my book just in 2 minutes and then come up with an effective, engaging blurb, I'd pay money for that.
Yeah, I don't see an issue with that.
I mean, even if all it gave you was kind of a starter blurb for you to kind of figure out how to tune from there, would you do it?
I would. I mean, as it is, I give my stuff to Dave, and he makes my blurbs.
Yeah, I'm free too.
I don't pay him either.
Okay.
No,
how about
other things it could do? Like right now, I use a couple grammar checkers, right? And now those are being, policy based and stuff like that.
But they cost money.
What's that?
And they cost money.
And they cost money. The thing is, if I could buy an AI that was better interactive, because, like, for instance, when I use Grammarly, it is, I'll run Grammarly on my novels when I'm done before I send them to my real editor, and I completely disagree with half of the decisions it wants to do. So I still have to go through a couple thousand things one at a time to say, no, I'm not doing that comma. Nope. Yeah, hey, I'm using Grammarly and dialogue. I misspelled that on purpose.
Yeah, I fight with Grammarly because I disagree with it on so many things.
So if you had a more interactive learning kind of tool that you could train up and communicate with to do what you wanted better in an AI setting, that'd be great for spelling, grammar, and punctuation. And especially if you could train it to use your voice. This is what my voice is. Help me out here. Be my best, spelling, grammar, punctuation checker ever because you know me. And I could really see an AI tool going for that a lot more.
And I would pay for something like that.
Yeah.
All right. How about assistive writing? By which I mean, for instance, you don't use it to write your story, but let's say you come to the scene, you have to write a description of a castle on a bluff with a high tower, and you're like, I'm just not feeling it. ChatGPT, describe a castle on a bluff with a high tower for me, in the style of Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah, well, the weird thing about that is how ChatGPT works is they base a lot of things on exemplars that are like something that's already been written like that they paraphrase. and you know, you might use it as a starting point, but I don't know how well that would work altogether.
I don't know how I feel about it. Like my gut reaction is I don't like that. Like I just feel like it's lazy. My gut reaction is I wouldn't want to give that author my money if every time they didn't know how to describe something they went to the robot. But then I don't know. Then I check myself and I'm like, I don't know. Like I've used name generators before when I couldn't think of a cool name, or you know, I will read some good writing in another book and say I'm going to describe it like that. Like I don't know. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have the space to criticize, even though I don't like it on a gut reaction level.
How about things like, epigraphs, the little quotes that you begin chapters with sometimes? ChatGPT, write me an epigraph for on the topic of XYZ.
I'd have to see it. I'd have to, try it. I'd have to, um, you know, run and test myself. I'm not so against them that I wouldn't try them just to see how much help they could be and how really scary it would be, working against me. And, but, it still remains to be seen. And I think that they're going to have a lot of legal problems associated with copyright and with plagiarism and stuff, depending on how the engine works. Because it can't all be original. It has to use some kind of exemplars to be doing stuff. So,
Right. I could see it trained at a minimum. I could see it trained on Project Gutenberg, all of the public domain writings. So we talked a little bit about having it write stories. I'm going to differentiate a little bit between like short fiction and long fiction. Do you think it might be more of a threat for say like short fiction?
I
don't
think
know. I'd have to see how effective it would be. I think short fiction's harder. Would be harder for a robot to come up with something more original.
I think that short fiction is more dangerous. Or in other words, easier for the bot, because I think that someone who is proofreading what the bot produces will have a lot easier time proofreading a 5,000, 7,000 word story. But if the bot produces, an 80,000 word novel, I think that reduces the amount of people that are actually going to go in and check what that bot wrote, like every single word. So I can see it just being a convenience factor where we see more short stories because people feel they can control them a little more. They're not as apprehensive to submit an 80,000 word novel that they haven't totally scoured and checked. So I think short fiction is definitely going to be a target.
So I can make 2 points there. One, I've seen AI generated flash fiction, which some of it wasn't awful. It probably wasn't publishable, but it wasn't awful, which surprised me. And the second is Neil Clark, owner and operator of Clark's World magazine, one of the top SF markets, has said starting in December, increasing in January, and peaking so far in February, that they are being inundated by basically AI-generated short story submissions to the point where it's actually impacting their ability to get through all of the slush. And that he's blacklisting everybody who sends something to him that he considers to be AI generated, but it's actually enough of a problem that it could really be a problem for some of the high-paying markets.
I could see that.
So some of this is already happening, and Marty and I were talking earlier and kind of speculating, ooh, well, what's to keep people from just shoveling stuff out onto Amazon? Like we were talking earlier in the podcast. There's also another area, and this is actually an area that Google is afraid of. It's not so much writing, but have you thought about using AI for research as an enabler?
Describe how that would work.
So you asked a ChatGPT for a summary of fortress construction in the 1600s because you need to design a castle for your book, or how did law and punishment work, in the 1200s in Scotland, right? And it just compiles the research for you and writes a little white paper on it. So rather than you having to do all the research, it just goes out and writes up the research for you. It's actually one of the things that Google's afraid of.
Why is Google afraid of it?
I spend a lot of time looking for things on Google, going through 10 pages of results to find what I want, refining, and even then I have problems. Like if you pick a topic, I'm trying to think of a good example. If you pick a topic that you're interested in that happens to be the name of a current rock band, it's almost impossible to get down to the actual knowledge you want because it's obscured by so much garbage, right?
Well, I actually envision Google presenting an AI interface for your queries.
Yeah, well,
like you're actually talking to a reference librarian who search for stuff that you don't think to search of.
This is why I think Google, as soon as ChatGPT started getting a lot of notoriety, Google announced, well, we're working on AI too, because nothing would scare Google more than a better search mechanism.
Right, because I could see that. You're out there, you're researching, I don't know, pick you something. Say the term bomb, and it goes out and it starts finding stuff that don't have that actual word in it. They come back with the word shrapnel. They come back with, grenade, or, stuff like that as natural language would work, as if you were asking actual people, about a topic. Their brains would have the connective ideas associated with the premise more than the actual keywords.
So
Shay, you've been quiet.
On what? What are you looking for?
Research.
Well, I don't see how that would work at all. I mean, you're asking someone from like a academic point of view. I'm thinking like research. That's like you go to JSTOR and you type in, your topic and you have to read for hours and hours. I don't see how that would work.
Well, I could see, like, for the novel I've been working on, I was researching every biblical reference to drinking blood and vampires, right? And I ended up like going through and reading so much of the Bible myself to find these passages where if I could just ask an AI, tool to go out and say, hey, show me all the references to, vampirism that might be related in the Bible. And it would come back with all the passages that took me, 40 hours to find. It could happen.
I mean, the Control F feature is my best friend. So I do know how technology can be helpful in that regards, but the day when
Control F is very precise.
Yeah.
If you do Control F and you search for the term blood, it's only going to return items that have the term blood in it. But if you could actually say to an intelligence to say, hey, I'm writing this book about vampires, give me all the biblical references to vampires or something that sounds like that. And then they go out and do all the heavy lifting with no precise search presented.
Maybe I just need to see it done.
And they write a white paper on it, which apparently ChatGPT is already capable of writing a relatively simplistic white paper on the subject.
Yeah, it's really that's the thing they're worried about in universities. Shay, you probably already know that.
Yeah.
They can write essays like crazy. And in fact, they were initially trained to write essays.
And the word on the street, is that students aren't using it to be their final submission, as we said before. They're just using it to get the words on the page, and then revising it. So it's a time saver. It's not a complete one-stop shop.
Well, it's more than a time saver if they're not doing any of the original research and they're just rewording what they get.
Right. If it's going to generate a white paper, and that includes all the references, this is where, that's most of the work when you're doing research, is finding the references. You can take the same references and write your own shitty essay.
I think I just need to see it done. I didn't believe that this thing was not like a big joke until I watched like a YouTube video of a guy doing it, like literally putting it in and producing the story. And then I thought it was going to be like, because I've talked to robots before that were designed as an entertainment value, to try to be like a real human. And you can always tell. I mean, it's always very obvious.
It's a Turing test. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But I was surprised, but go ahead.
There's a replica, which was created by a San Francisco startup called Luca. It's a chat bot. And it will talk sex with you. It'll sext you. If you approach it.
It'll talk sex with you.
What was that link again?
And apparently a lot of people were upset because the company cut off that capability, and there were people who were practically in love with the replica, as if they had a relationship with this chat bot.
But would the bot remember who came? No, God, I said that.
Really? No, you're taking that personal.
I'm logging off. Will the bot remember who visited it before in the past?
Oh, euphemism.
I'm sure it would. All websites remember you, and it behooves them to remember you.
In that case, I guess I can see why. I mean, how there was like some relationship forming, but like, again, I feel like I'm just like, I'm kind of a downer in this conversation, because like every time you bring this up, I'm like, that can't be real. And then I see it, and my mind has changed. So maybe we need to do like another episode where we have it screen share and just mess around with this thing.
Well, you also have to remember, Marty and I are both, okay, you're retired now, Marty, but in my day job, I'm an IT person. So I'm exposed to software all the time and have written a lot of software in my time. I have even done AI back in the good old days. So I'm used to the way software advances and stuff. So when I look at ChatGPT, I'm not thinking 2 can do and what version 3 can do down the road. And I'm going, holy shit.
That makes me the perfect author to be taken out by these things, because I'm just like not taking it seriously. I'm just like, oh, really? That's funny. And keep going about my day. I mean, you guys are taking it seriously, and maybe like an actual grand strategy needs to be made for authors about how to survive this.
Not just authors, but I also think Amazon's going to have a strategy. All the markets that accept stories are going to have a strategy, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't, and the legal ramifications and the copyright ramifications and stuff, man, I foresee a mess.
Well,
there's another aspect that I've heard professionals in the industry voice. The audiobook narration community is very much scared of AIs for audiobook narration, because the text to voice, natural speaking AIs has been a big program focus for a lot of tech companies. I want my AI avatar to have natural speaking voice. And so as time is going by, the text to speech interfaces are getting better and better, to the point where the audio narration community is getting scared that a tool is going to come along so that you could set all these radio buttons. Oh, I want a British accent, and I want a female, and I want her to be 35 years old, and I want to have a deep husky voice. And, you could turn all of these radio buttons and then press go, and suddenly you have an entire book audio recorded for you, ready to upload and be published. That would be problematic.
Yeah, so right now we've just described, you know, the audio world, the book world, and the art world when it comes to like images and stuff are all now threatened in one way or another by
And
AI.
academia.
Oh, and academia.
Another academia threat that I saw is there are some companies out there that are looking to create AI professors.
Huh.
That, can you imagine an accredited university of all AI professors that are available 24/7 and could have 8,000 kids in the same class and pay full one-on-one attention to every student in that class? So,
did you guys ever see the movie Her?
Yeah, it's my favorite movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. But that's another thing, because, you know, lessons are really very formal, and taking, you know, text and turning it into classes, that could be very problematic for education too.
I did see recently that there was like a legal ruling where they said that robots are not capable of owning artistic property, because there was recently a case that came up about there was a piece of art that was produced by a robot, and there was a debate over whether the designer of the robot would get any sales from that art, whether no one would get any sales from that art, you know, who owns that art. And I think they ruled that robots cannot own property.
Right. It's like, does Microsoft Word own your book? No, it does not. But the person that's typing the buttons, that's going to be the owner of the artwork. And the thing is if the creator of the software has not specifically stated in their licenses anything about royalties or, you know, paying them above and beyond, then it goes to the actual creator that asked it to make it.
If the robot just produces art though without being asked to produce art, who owns it then?
Well, the thing is, if you boil it all down, that doesn't exist. Because some guy in the beginning says, hey, you know, AI Bob, go out there and make art. Presses enter. That guy had to press enter. That guy had to enable it. Once you get an AI out there that wasn't designed to make art, starts making art, you know, it reminds me of the Star Trek episode where they were talking about Data's humanity, and he was trying to learn an instrument to play. He was trying to do paintings, and he was debating with someone, and he said, "Oh, can you create a masterpiece?" You know, he's asking Data, "Could you create your own original masterpiece?" And he looks at the human and he says, "Can you?" So, you know, it remains to be seen. And I don't know, Dave, you were driving a bus, but the last thing I want to know is, what if there is an AI out there that writes the best goddamn book that you've ever read?
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
Well,
and
like
what if he wrote that in 2 minutes, and the guy who you know, is the one on KDP and presses the button to publish it sells it for 99 cents, for 50 cents? And a new novel comes out every day by the same bot that's an awesome novel. That's when we're all out of a job.
Right. Yeah.
I think there's a point though where I'm like, I only want to see something written by a real person.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think you're always going to have purists. I think you always will. Like, even 500 years from now, when we have all sorts of technology, you're always going to have people who crave a human touch and are curious. They're curious what a human mind can create or does create. That would never be satisfied by reading what a robot can create. There's always going to be
what you just described is the same exact scenario with traditional publishers and indie published authors. There are some people that won't read indie published
Oh,
authors.
I see. Okay, well,
You know,
Yeah,
then there are
I
people for
understand that,
everybody.
but I still have a fundamental problem with you know, AI replacing everything creative that any person can do. What are you
Yeah.
going to do when they start writing our movies and writing our television scripts and writing, you know?
well, that's the thing. In the end, somebody's got to get paid, and that's the part that worries me. If they get everybody addicted to that stuff, and suddenly, oh, you like that stuff? You know, oh, these are the best novels that you've ever read. Oh, they're going to cost you $200 a piece. You know, who knows?
Of course, as far as I can tell, again, if AI is going to help you make so much money, the people who produce the AIs are going to figure out how to get some piece of it, whether it's charging you more money to use the AI or charging you by the minute for using the AI or, you know, whatever.
Or the AI is so invasive into your privacy, you can hide nothing from it. You think Google's bad now. You think Facebook is bad now. Let an AI in your computer and you're bought and paid for.
Well, we'll see. I think we've gotten past the original goal of the episode, though.
Fun episode, and it'll be interesting to see. It might be worth, setting a calendar entry for a year from now to see where we are with the AI situation.
I was going to say, this could be a historic episode. People 50 years from now could look back on this, and this could be cited in some poor history student's dissertation in 50 years about this stuff. So,
yeah, in summary, I think the genie is out of the bottle. We just have to figure out what's going to happen next. And
maybe that history student will be using ChatGPT to write the essay on this. So, there you go.
All right. Another great episode, guys.
Oh.
What's that?
I said, yep.
Yep. And we'll see you next week. And hopefully we're not AIs by then.
Hopefully.